Just about anyone can learn to make an overhand knot and put a stick through it. Right? Very similar to the bowline, but you can tie it even if you've got mittens on, or you just bring a bite up through that. Right? Really easy to tie. You want to untie it, you just pull on that tag end. Out she goes. Okay, it's a quick knot to tie. Just loop through. There, I got a fixed loop. Now all we got to do is pull on each side, and it's out. This video is about alternatives to the bowline knot, knots that are like the bowline knot, that are easier to tie, easier to untie, and more favorable to different kinds of rope. The bowline knot is a nautical knot, and in my opinion, it's meant to be tied with rope like this. Heavy rope for tying boats to piers. It's a bowline knot. Okay? When you get to finer line, like paracord, or you know, a lot of bushcraft guys use bank line. Right? When you get to line like that, it does not, especially with bank line, you tie a bowline knot in bank line, put some tension on it, good luck getting that out. It doesn't come out easily. So it's useful to know knots that are like a bowline that come out easily. And just, I'm going to show you all these different things here. That's why we're inside as opposed to outside, because I can do it against this white table and sort of give you good visibility. First, let's define the bowline knot. In terms of its functionality, I would say it is a fixed loop. Right? It's a loop in a line. You're putting a loop in a line in such a way that it can be untied reasonably easily. That's what you want. You're putting a loop in a line. I mean, it's not hard to put a loop in a line, but a lot of fixed loops, once you tie them and put tension on them, they will not come back out. Right? So it's a fixed loop in a line that you can untie with relative ease. Okay, so let's tie the bowline knot here. Let me change the camera angle and show you what we're talking about. All right, I'm going to tie this first with heavy rope just so it's easy to see everything about it. Okay, so the bowline knot, you've got your, you know, they say you make a hole, okay? And they say, and you got the tag end here, right, this is the working end of the rope, this is the tag end. So they say the rabbit comes up out of the hole, goes around the tree, goes back in the hole, okay? All right, that's the bowline knot. And it's a useful knot to know how to do. It's pretty easy to tie. It's one of these things when you see someone do it, it's not intuitive. You need to practice it to get a feel for it, okay? But the way it goes together, it doesn't really matter how hard you pull. It's relatively easy to get the thing untied, right? Let me just show you that again. You make a loop towards the working end. You take the tag end, you put it up through the hole. You go around the working end, and you put it back through the hole, and then you know, dress the knot. You've got your bowline. Okay. Now you have to untie this. Really, what you do is you pull down on this, right, and that makes it loose and easy to come apart. Okay, and if you're using rope like this, you know, it's going to come apart for you most of the time. All right, that's why it's handy with rope like this. Once you're using paracord, okay, so again, it's still easy to tie, right? There, we got our bowline knot. Okay, it's still easy to tie, it's quick to tie, and comes apart, you know, pretty easily, right? All we got to do is pull down on that, it becomes loose, and we can get it out. Okay, once you graduate to something like this, and you put a lot of tension on it, and you've got things moving around and stuff like that, it doesn't come apart so easily. So, here's all your alternatives. Okay, so one alternative is that, let's say you need a fixed loop in a line and you're never going to untie it. Doesn't matter, using old line or a throwaway rope or whatever, right? Well, if that's the case, you don't need a bowline. You just do a loop, right? You just do an overhand. You make a bite in the line, and you just do an overhand knot. Simplest knot ever in that bite. Now you've got a fixed loop. Now you put enough tension and you work enough with this knot will never come undone. Not everyone's, some people just love knots and enjoy learning to tie them and like working with their hands. I'm a very fidgety person, so if I'm tied up on a long phone call, I actually take out a piece of rope and I start playing around with different knots. If I'm watching TV, I play with different knots. Basically, if I'm sitting idle, I tend to play with knots, and I've always been like that. But not everyone's like that. Some people work with their hands, or they're very crafty, or they're mechanically inclined, and some people aren't. So if it's one of those types of people that in the aren't category, right, this might be the only kind of fixed loop they're able to learn easily, like say on a weekend excursion, and you need them to be able to tie stuff like this. So a trick is you tie this knot with your loop, right, and then before you tighten it, you put you just put a stick in it, right, a toggle. Make sure the stick is narrower at one end than the other so it'll slide out. But once you tighten that up around the stick, okay, it'll hold tight. Okay, so this is the tag end. This is like I'm holding on to the working end and the end of the knot. Put that as tight as I want. Simulate, you know, wind, and or let's say it's tying a canoe to shore or whatever, right? A lot of stress. It will not come loose. It's completely reliable. Fixed loop, right? Tied to a line. And it's easy to untie because once you pop the stick out, right, the knot isn't tight anymore. Right, so it's a workaround. Like if you just don't want to learn any of these knots that I'm going to show you, or if the person just doesn't like learning knots or isn't that enthusiastic or whatever, just teaching this one. Oh, you know, you just make a loop, what they call a bite in the line, tie a simple overhand knot, and before you tighten the knot up, pop a little stick in there, snug her up, and you're ready to rock with a fixed loop that is easy to untie, right? So, you know, for that matter, once you have that set up, it becomes useful because let's say, whoops, wait a minute, I forgot to put my stick in. Once you've got that set up, see how much trickier it is? I didn't even come onto that too hard, but yeah. Once you've got that set up with the stick in the middle, basically a toggle, okay? Now you can use this toggle to attach things to. Let's say you had a kind of clove hitch, right? You could attach, I'm trying to do this one-handed here, but you could attach a clove hitch to that and hang something else off of it, right? I mean, it's kind of a, not clove hitch, sorry, lark's head, right? So the lark's head knot is this type of knot, right? But you can just sort of fit that over the toggle, any toggle really, right? And now you've got a point you can attach things to. If you loop this fixed loop over something, now you can attach things to the toggle, right? And the whole thing dismantles very, very easily. Just another trick. You got a person that doesn't want to learn, has a hard time learning, or you haven't got a lot of time to figure out. Basically, you need to train someone to make an untieable fixed loop fast. You know, just about anyone can learn to make an overhand knot and put a stick through it. Right? Another alternative to the bowline knot. All right, so another alternative to the bowline knot is this knot here, which I'm not exactly sure what it's called, but you make the same starting loop like you would with the bowline. And in the same way, your rabbit comes up out of the hole, okay? But instead of going around the tree and back down in the hole, what it does instead, and this is really fast to tie, you're up out of the hole, you go around here and up through a loop like that. Whoops, I did it wrong, didn't leave enough tag in. So you got your little hole, right? This goes up through, and then you pull a bite through that, okay? Now you've got basically a fixed loop, right? It's not gonna, you mend this up a little bit. This is not gonna give up on you. You can pull on that as hard as you like. But when you want it undone, you just pull on this, and the whole thing comes undone. right? So again, the bowline goes like this, right, around the tree, back through the hole, and you've got your bowline. Right, this needs to be mended up a little bit more. There we go. That's a nice snug one there. Okay, that's your bowline. All right. This other one is different. It goes like this, goes through here, and then you don't go. You do not go around this part of the rope. You go through the opposite, the part of the, basically the part of the line opposite that loop, and you put a bite through like that. And then you mend the knot. Okay. You know, just snug everything up. You can even pull some of that bite out. Okay. So now you've got this really reliable, right, knot. Okay. But it's ridiculously easy. The ease of untying is incredible, right? So no matter how tight we get our paracord, this holds. When we don't knot the knot anymore, I pop that out and we're out. You can't untie a bowline knot that quickly, right? Let's say I got to pack up in a hurry. I've got my bowline, or my whatever this is called, pseudo bowline or quick release style. It's not a bowline because it's a different knot. It goes together a different way, aside from the fact that it has a loop. Okay, so we got this situation here. When I want to untie it, pops out. Now you can also do a quick release with the bowline, right? We can do a bowline knot where we go up through here and we go around here, okay, and then we pass a bite. Instead of just putting the line through the hole, we put a bite through the hole like that. Okay, this knot looks different, and it's different than the one I just tied. So this is an alternative to the bowline because it's basically a kind of quick release bowline. Okay, so this is a fixed loop, right? That is reliable. That won't just shake itself loose. When we want to untie it, we just pop this out and then pull it off. By putting a bite through the very end of tying a bowline knot, which is not impossible, right? That's what I just did there. It's more tricky than this alternative I just showed you. I do not know what this other knot's called. Okay, so this is just a bowline with a bite worked into its design, right? The last stage of the bowline knot, right? This is a bowline where you've got this thing through, rabbit goes around the tree, and when the rabbit goes back down in the hole, it sort of takes a friend, right? And so this is a modified bowline. It's just trickier to tie, but it's better than a bowline insofar as when you want to untie it, it's really easy to untie, right? But this alternative I just showed you is where the rabbit comes up through the hole, and it just goes around here, and you pop it up as a bite. It's really easy to tie. Like, you can tie it with your eyes closed. You can tie it with, I wouldn't be surprised if you could tie that with mittens on. Right, so it's really easy to do. Let me see if I can tie this with mittens on. That would be a good experiment. Let's take it up in stages. Let's see if I can first tie this with wool gloves on, right? You're a northern person working in the winter. Okay, and a useful knot for bushcraft is a knot you can tie when it's really cold and you've got gloves or mittens on. Okay, so we make our loop, rabbit comes up through it. It's hard to tie knots with mittens and gloves on. Pop that through, pull on it. We've got it. Okay, so I can do that with these wool gloves. When I want to untie the knot, I can untie it with, this is the advantage of this. When I want to untie the knot, I can do it with these clumsy wool gloves on, right? Let's try it with mittens. All right, so these are leather mittens, thick leather mittens. These aren't very warm, but the combination of these leather mittens and these wool gloves, this is what I tend to wear when it's really cold. If it's super duper cold, I wear wool mittens under these wool gloves. But these mittens are pretty cheap because they don't have any insulation. People don't buy them. But you put something like this on and you can go out minus 20 and be fine because you have the insulation of the wool, but these are all oiled with mink oil and stuff like that. basically you've got the weatherproofness of the leather mitten. Anyway, this is about as clumsy as it gets in terms of hand dexterity. Let's see if we can tie this bowline. I think we can. All right, so I take my end here, maybe make this loop a little bit smaller, tie and untie. All right, so it goes through, you put her around. It's hard to see what I'm doing here, but it's my first time trying this. I normally take my mitts off, but I'm resisting the urge to use my teeth here. Okay, so we've got this alternative bowline tied. Okay, we got our loop. We have a fixed loop. Okay, that is reliable. And now I'm going to pull as tight as I can on it. Okay, and now I want to untie it. I just pull on the tag end, right? And out she goes, right? With these clumsy big fat mittens. All right, so that's doable. Okay, so for my money, that's a good alternative to the bowline. It's so quick and easy and fast to tie, right? You can tie it with mittens on, which means the level of manual dexterity required is minimal, right? You could have numb hands, you could be hurt or whatever, and you can still get that into the rope. And when you need to untie it, it comes apart easily. Okay, we got one more alternative here, and this is called, it's sort of a modified pony knot. So you make a loop like this, and you take your tag end and you pull it up through the loop. Okay? So we basically have like a slip knot, but it's a kind of a useless slip knot because it does, if you pull on the working end, it just pops out, right? So it's a weird kind of slip knot. It's almost like a backwards slip knot. Okay, so we make a little knot and we pull the tag end through. Now we've got we have a loop, but it's not fixed. Now all you got to do is take this tag end, pop a bite through behind this knot. It's easy to tie. Okay, mend that up. You can, so we have a little bit of a loop here, right? Okay, so now we have a fixed loop that is reliable, right? It's not going to give up on us. When we want to untie it, we just pop her out. Right, that one's really easy to untie. Right? Let me show you that again. Almost looks like magic, doesn't it? So we got our little loop here, okay? We pull the tag end through. We make our loop. Down here, we take the tag end, make a bite. Tighten that against the initial knot. You've got this little loop here, okay? Now you've got this fixed loop. This here is just basically our untying loop, right? So now we have this nice fixed loop, which is what you need when you have a bowline. That is reliable, won't give up. If you're really worried about this giving up, you could pop a little toggle through it like that and pull tight against the toggle, right? So now we know that's not going to fail, right? I've never seen it fail, but anyway. We got our fixed loop. When we want to untie it, pop the toggle, and now all we got to do is pull on each side, and it's out. Okay, now this doesn't work as slickly and as smoothly with every single kind of rope, but it works really, really well with paracord. Okay, let me show you that in sort of, functional speed. I'm out in the woods, I don't have time to mess around. I'm not doing an instructional video. Okay, it's a quick knot to tie. All right, we just put the loop through. There, I got a fixed loop. Right? If for whatever reason I needed to tie something to this end to hang off of something, right? Then I could put a toggle through this little untying loop. Right now I can tie something to this end and this part still won't give up, right? But as soon as this taw goes out, if I pull on this little end, right, the whole thing just comes apart. Even this part, you can see it just comes apart, right? Okay, so let's review. Okay, so we've got the bowline knot, right? Relatively easy to tie, right? And relatively easy to untie, depending on the kind of rope you have and how much tension you're putting on it. But it can be a pain with the kind of rope bushcrafters use, because we're not using heavy nautical rope for boats, okay? Now this here, I haven't put a lot of tension on it, and this rope isn't, the thinner the diameter of the rope is, the harder the bowline can be to untie. We can modify the bowline, as I showed you, by doing the bowline as you normally would, but by putting a bite back through the hole, instead of just putting the tag end through the hole. Okay, so we've got that. It's pretty easy. You want to untie it, pop that, pull it through like that. The other one is this sort of knot that really, it's very similar to the bowline, but you can tie it even if you've got mittens on, or we just bring a bite up through that, right? Really easy to tie. I tend to use this more often than the bowline because it's just easier to tie, and it's good to practice it and get your muscle memory so that you can tie it with mittens on, or if your hands are numb or you're not at your best, right? So a reliable fixed loop. Want to untie it, you just pull on that tag end, out she goes. And then the final one is this sort of modified pony knot, where we're doing this type deal. Get the knot the way you want it, and put a bite stopper behind it like that, right? Now we've got a glorious little fixed loop, and we can mend this up if we want it to look cooler for whatever reason. We have a glorious little fixed loop. When we don't want it anymore, we just pull it apart. So, bowline knot. Alternatives to the bowline knot. I've given you 3 alternatives to the bowline knot if you're looking for a fixed loop knot that's easy to tie and untie. I think the alternatives I've given you are at least on par, if not better. The modified bowline is a little trickier to tie than a bowline, but it's easier to untie. The other 2 alternatives I gave you are easier to tie than a bowline. I tied one of them using mittens, and I showed you the other one very quick and easy to tie. But they're both easier to untie than a bowline. I mean, you could literally untie them using one hand in your mouth, right? So I think they're better. I still don't think the bowline is the king of bushcraft knots. In my opinion, actually, I mean, these things really depend, but the knot I tie most often is variations on the pony knot, which I actually did one here, right? But that's another video, another thing. I don't want to get into that here. Yeah, give these a try. Let me know what you think in the comments. Yeah, I think it's almost like saying I've come up with a better mousetrap. But again, we are not on the high seas tying ships to piers. We're in the woods doing other kinds of things. So, and using finer ropes, right? Stuff like this and stuff like this, which I carry a lot of this because it takes up very little room. It's very strong and does a lot. It'll do stuff paracord will do, but it's just got different qualities because it's hard. It behaves differently. But anyway, some thoughts on the bowline knot, some alternatives about that, and you know, give them a try, see what you think, and let me know what you think in the comments. So I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and until next time, enjoy the outdoors on the cheap. Thanks for watching.